pepper sprayed and threatened a colored lieutenant for a petty reason. "I am honestly afraid to get out," said the dark-skinned Army lieutenant, who had guns pointed at him. Instead of assuring him that nothing was wrong, they further threatened the uniformed military man and even doused him with pepper spray. When the policeman revealed the reason, the lieutenant was stupefied, as such severe action was unexpected. It was clear that both were just segregationists and had to face the consequences. Joe Gutierrez, one of the police officers involved in the incident, was fired after an internal investigation confirmed that his actions were not consistent with the department's policies. The whole episode was recorded and made public, which drew outraged national attention to the small town of Windsor. The colored lieutenant was never charged after being harmed by the cops, but he sued them in federal court, alleging that his constitutional rights were breached. The incident served as a grim reminder to all the dark-skinned military officers that the uniform would not necessarily protect them against police mistreatment. Lieutenant Nazario was driving to Petersburg, Virginia, from a drill weekend the night of December 5 when he saw police lights flashing behind him. Two policemen signaled an SUV car to stop. However, the Army second lieutenant, Karen Nazario, continued to drive. He wasn't ignoring them. Instead, he was looking for a safe place on a darkened road to park his car and therefore drove about a mile to a near gas station. It was understandable that the cops must have thought otherwise. However, their reaction was too much for a normal traffic routine checkup. In a report from that night, the officers said they had pulled over Lieutenant Nazario because his SUV did not have license plates. In his defense, the Army officer explained that he had recently bought a Chevrolet Tahoe and was waiting for his license plate. However, he did have a temporary one, which could be clearly seen taped inside the rear window. "Get out of the car," one officer can be heard yelling as Lieutenant Nazario, who remained seated and repeatedly asked why he had been stopped and why the officers have drawn their guns. He was wearing his Army uniform and positioned his empty hands outside the window. The colored military man, who is serving the country, did not appreciate the way he was being treated and kept questioning the two police officers. One of them got furious and pepper sprayed the lieutenant, after which he began to cry and curse because of the excruciating pain. At one point, Gutierrez told Nazario he was fixin' to ride the lightning, a reference to the electric chair that was also a line from the movie The Green Mile. Finally, Karen Nazario got out of the car and asked for a supervisor, to which the cop responded with knee strikes to his legs, knocking him to the ground. The two officers struck him multiple times, then handcuffed and interrogated him, although they didn't charge him. The whole traffic stop event was recorded on Nazario's cell phone as well as the officers' body-worn cameras. Obviously, the lieutenant was not going to leave them unpunished, so with the help of his attorney, General Mark Herring, he sued the town, alleging that it operated in a way that discriminated against dark-skinned Americans. Although Gutierrez had not forcefully removed Nazario, he did use inappropriate statements, which were enough to understand that there was an underlying bias. Tom Roberts, another attorney representing Nazario, said, "I think that there's sufficient evidence to show that he was intentional in his actions." Meanwhile, Gutierrez's attorney, John Becker Mumford Jr., asked the court to view the case for potential civil rights wrongdoing. Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia also commented on the incident and said that he would conduct a meeting with Lieutenant Nazario to discuss police reform. He also assured the people of the town that the authorities would keep working to assure that Virginians were safe during interactions with police. A lawyer for Lieutenant Nazario, Jonathan Arthur, said in a statement that his client was gratified by the outpouring of support he had received. He further appreciated the decision to fire Mr. Gutierrez and requested the police department to decertify officers that engage in this behavior, so that they cannot seek employment with other law enforcement agencies. As per reports, officials in the town of Windsor in Virginia said the incident had resulted in disciplinary action, and department-wide requirements for additional training were implemented. The lawsuit comes at a time of increased scrutiny over alleged police brutality towards minorities and ethnic justice. Before this ex-police officer, Derek Chauvin, was charged and put behind bars for 252 months for taking away George Floyd's civil rights and using excessive force. In May 2020, Chauvin was responsible for taking the life of George Floyd, a colored man. The incident was filmed and then went viral, which sparked a radical response to police brutality and bigotry in America. Besides Chauvin, 3 other police officers were found guilty of the offense. They were Thomas Lane, To Tao, and J. Alexander Kung. The 46-year-old bought a pack of cigarettes at a convenience store, and the shopkeeper believed that he had used a counterfeit $20 bill and called the police. The 4 police officers at the scene were fired the following day, as crowds took to the streets of Minneapolis to protest. The station where they worked was set ablaze, and demonstrations quickly spread to other cities. By the 6th night, there were protests in 75 cities across the U.S., and a national debate about police brutality against African Americans was reignited. After the verdict, the Floyd family's lawyer, Ben Crump, said the conviction marked a turning point in history for the U.S., as it is rare that police officers in the U.S. are charged, let alone convicted, for use of lethal force. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris called the Floyd family after the verdict. Mr. Biden was heard saying that at least now there is some justice.